today we are going to talk about the book Heroes and Heroines. Our first story from the Model 1 is Truganini. Truganini was a Tasmanian Aboriginal. She became famous for her struggle and for help people to survive the most hard period of their story. Her perseverance to remain to her culture is admired to this day. In 1803, Europe started to make use of the island. A conflict started between two cultures. Settle attacks and kills Aboriginals, who tried to resist as best as they could. In this hard period, Truganini was born around 1812. By the time Truganini was 17 and her life was full of violence. The conflict turned into a social movement by the settlers against the Aboriginals, the Black War. In this conflict, Truganini's family and a lot of people had been murdered. They fled to the forest to escape the struggle. In 1829, Truganini met George Robinson, a government official. He suggested to her to convince her people to move to a settle, and then he would help them with food, shelter, and protection from the violence. Truganini and George became closer, and she taught him Aboriginal language and costumes. By 1835, they moved almost all the Aboriginal people to the new settlement and Flinders Island. But Truganini realized Robinson's plan to destroy the Aboriginal culture. New disease began to sweep through the settles, and the last survivors began to die from the sickness. In 1847, Truganini and other survivors returned to the mainland. Her new home was in Oyster Cove. Truganini proudly chose to return to her old lifestyle. By 1876, she saw the complete destruction of her people because the last survivors were gone. When she died at 64, she was full-blown Tasmanian Aboriginal, and her skeleton was put on display at the Tamanini Museum. In the 1776, the Aboriginal community got her bones back after a legal battle, and Truganini's ashes were scattered on the water of her tribal land. The second story is John Simpson and his donkey. John was buried in the Australian Armed Medical Corps, and he was one of the first assholes at Gallipoli, Turkey. His work was rescuing wounded men. He died on May in 1915. Gallipoli is home to a lot of donkeys. John decided to work alone and to use a donkey to help him in the rescue of injured men from the battlefield. Colonel Monash was a John's friend, and he remembered that John had a special bond with his donkey, Duffy, which he treated as a friend. With the help and assistance of his donkey, John could make around 12 trips a day under standing fire from the turkeys. John worked for almost a month just with a little rest. He not only saved many of monuments, but he also brought them relief in the form of water. John led his donkey was up what is called Monash Valley, all under heavy enemy's fire. John was killed on the morning of May 19, while returning down Monash Valley with a wounded soldier. He gave his life so that others might live. And in hiding. In the year of 1940, there was a huge fight with Jewish people, and in 1939, the Second World War had been started in Europe. The Nazis had occupied a lot of countries, and they used to round up Jews, and also took them to concentration camps. In those camps, the Jews were killed by Nazis. Anne and her family were Germans who had moved to Amsterdam in Netherlands. Anne's father, Otto, anticipated the Nazi plan against the Jews, and he got a hiding place for them with bed and supplies. On the year of 1942, Otto realized that the Nazis were about to capture Margot, his other daughter. Due to circumstances, the Franks, the Van Piel's family, and a man called Fritz had moved into a secret annex. They were safe and comfortable, but in the same was really difficult and the fear have never left them. They were afraid of being caught, so they had to stay quiet during a very long part of their days. Anne used to have a lot of schoolworks, and besides that, she kept herself occupied reading books and writing her diary, in which she used to write stories or things that she couldn't tell her family. The adults were really tense besides Anne's father, who used to criticize Anne for being so vocal. Anne missed her cat a lot, called Marty, her friends, and also her privacy. She wanted to feel the fresh air in her skin and would often go to the athletics to look at the sky. She wrote, "As long as you can look freshly at the sky, you will know that you are pure with him and will find happiness one more." During the night, listening to terrifying sounds of bombs, Anne used to cry a lot for sleep. She thought Anat, her Joe friend, and feel guilty for being safe, and they weren't. Also, she was worried about the helpers who befriended her family and bought them food, gifts, and news from outside. When they used to celebrate special occasions, Anne worried about giving everyone a little present or fun poems just to make them laugh. And she used to play with the clowns. In her diary, she wrote that no one else used to understand her sadness. On August 4 of 1944, the people who lived in the annex were discovered and arrested. Sadly, Anne and Margot, her sister, died from typhus in a concentration camp. She always wanted to be a famous writer, and after the war, her father, the only friend who survived, published Anne's diary and her talent. Winsome and Barely has been admired by millions of people in the entire world. Dear Kitten, yesterday I had a very tumultuous day, and we were still all hunted. Actually, you must be wondering if we have a single day that is not kind of complicated. The first warning siren was in the morning while we were having our breakfast, but we didn't pay attention. I had a terrible headache, so I took 1 hour nap after breakfast and then went to the office about 2. At 2:30, my sister Margaret had her office work finished and she got getting her things together when the siren started to wailing again. So we went upstairs. About 5 minutes later, the gunshots started to bombing so loud that we went and stood in the passage. The house shook and the bombs kept falling. I was holding my escape bag because I wanted to have something to hold, not because I wanted to run away. I know that we can live here, but we had to being sign in the streets will be so dangerous as getting caught in the air raid. After 30 minutes, the drone engineers faded and the activities in the house began again, and we watched the columns of smoke rising from the airborne. The smell of fire was everywhere and outside. It looked like the city was enveloped in the thin fog. A huge fire like that isn't a place straight, but glad for us it is all over, and we went back to our normal routine and jobs. The food was tasty, but I didn't want to eat, since I have never heard the siren. Nothing happened, and 45 minutes later was all clean. After that, another air radio alarm, gunshots, and planes noise without, oh gosh, twice a day. That's twice. That's too many. A little bit before the bombs rained down, and now on the other sides of the city. According to Brisbane's news, Scripps Airport was bombed. The planes divided. The air was a box with the drones. It was really scary, and my only thoughts were, here it comes. This is it. I can tell that when I went to bed at night, my legs were shaking. By midnight, I woke up once more. More planes. Just as I was undressing, I took not notice. I stayed at my father's bed at 2, but the plane's still coming. But at least they have stopped firing, so I was able to go to my bed again. Then I fell asleep. I woke up at 7 and I stayed in bed. Miss Van Den was with my father, and the first thing that came into my mind was burglars. Everything that Miss Burns was saying, I heard it, and I thought that everything was being stolen. But no, for once, we got news. We got good news. The best one in the month. Maybe the best one since everything started. Mussolini has resigned and the King of Italy has taken over the government. We were so happy. After the terrible events from yesterday, finally it is something good. And that's bring us hope. Hope to the end of the war and peace. Yours, Anne. The Great Soul. This story tells about Mohandas Krambi Gandhi, who was born in 1869, when his country, India, was still part of the British Empire. In 1893, he went to live in another British possession, South Africa. There, he saw the empire of another side. Gandhi started work from the rights of Indian in South Africa and continued to fight for it. After many events, he started campaigning against the government that quickly spread across the country. The Lady with the Lamp. This story tells about a woman named Nightingale who was born in 1820 and grew up as a gentlewoman. Nightingale taught nurses in Harpenson, England. At the age of 16, she trained in medicine, hygiene, and the patients who desired to be useful to the society. She tried to take care of it. She transformed the hospital and became a nurse. She wanted to be an army nurse in the war, but at the time it was not common to have nurses, and her parents were shocked. They forbade her to go where she wanted. Many soldiers were killed in the battle. Finally, her father allowed her to train, not least because there was a lack of nurses. In 1853, she was appointed superintendent of soldiers in a London hospital called the Institution for a Sickness Disease like Chorea. Lentil as anything. Shekinah Fernando lives in Melbourne. In late of 1990s, he started his own fabric recycling business in skirts, and in 2000, he opened his restaurant, Lentil as Anything. The restaurant sold vegetarian meals made with organic foods. It was so successful that they were now 4 lentils as anything. Their goal is not to make money for their own, but to provide a place for people who may not have money to eat out. There are no fixed prices for the meals. You can pay as much as you want or as much as you can. Payments are made all anonymous in a cashier that counter and are based on trusting people to be honest. Customers are not only ones who benefit from Lenti West anything, as it also serves as a young training center employing around 18 young people, 60% of whom are refugees. The whole purpose is to make the restaurant encourage people in the community, both employers and customers. Shekana Fernando received the Australia Local Hero Award, which is awarded to Australians who have made outstanding contributions to their community. The greatest hero. Sammy's mother sent him a letter apologizing for missing the football game as she was in a work emergency with the searching and rescue team. For Sammy, his mother is a hero. She still say that day they were rescued 3 people after being lost for 50 hours. Also, congratulations on winning the game and saving. How sad you are for not having seen it. It also tells a story of his father, Sam's grandfather, who was farmed after and who do it working too much, did not pay attention to his children, but who after a day working with him realized how much he loved and he did and that it was very important. In other words, she tells Sammy that everyone thought the job is important. The most special thing was her son, and that this serves as advice for him too. This is being a hero, loving what you do and having a purpose. The Blazing Fields. Oshisan was a man that owns a rice field and was the wealthiest man in his village. He also was the handsome of the village. He loved and respected by all. That's because his name was Oshinsan, which means grandfather. In the village was happening one of big festivals to celebrate the successful harvest. And the festival out of nowhere became a quake that shook the ground and caked the house. But Odson was not finished. He had felt many of earthquakes, but that one of had been something strange. He described like oddly slow and long. Ojisan looked at the sea and see the water dark and shining. He and Tata walked at the field of rice. He wanted to send a message to the village by putting fire on his own field. Everybody in the entire village came to see the fire, but that was exactly what Ojisan was wanting. On the field, he showed to everyone what's going on, and only after they saw the entire village destroyed by tsunami, they understood. Ojisan sacrificed his future to save people from the village. A true champion. Jennifer was a girl that dreamed to be a world champion surfer, like her mom and dad. But her brothers needed more convinced about her had what it took to be a champion. Her brothers kept saying that she couldn't do because she was willing to show them that she was really good and that she had a chance to win. In the Kalahari Classic Surfer tournament that she was going to be participating, she had a problem. The competition was only for boys, and no way that they were going to accept a girl. But she was willing to do anything to show how good she was. So she ran into the water and took the next wave. In the sea, she did a lot of mutterments, and the crowds whooped and cheered noisily. But the happiness don't take long. Her brother tells her that was a merriment and was never done it. The next day, she was surfing at her favorite spot, Peaky Point, with her friend when she felt something strange, like a gray shadow, come to her direction. But it was too late to move, so she was screaming of pain on her left arm. She screamed for help when her friends came. She was unconscious. 2 days later, she was in the hospital with her family and friends, but notice was not good to her. She had lost her left arm, but it was a miracle that's still even alive. Jennifer was really sad and don't know if she could survive that. Jennifer knew that if she doesn't sew anything, she was going to be like that. So 6 months after the attack, Sammy and Jason, her brothers, organized a big surfing competition in honor of Jennifer's bravery. Jennifer grabbed her board under her right arm and ran into the water. She really was a true champion. My hero. My hero is someone so much bigger than just a hero. Is someone that I'm truly proud to call my father. He's probably not the perfect person, not the bravest, and he doesn't even have superpowers, but I can for sure say that he's the most loving person in the world. Heroes can be strong, powerful, invincible, but if you don't have love, who are you? Love is the key for everything, and the person that taught me that was my father. Since I was born, he took care of me. He saved me, he rescued me, he did whatever a hero would do to protect someone. But most of all, he loved me, and I can't be more thankful for that. He is and always will be my inspiration and the person that I want to be in my future. I want to be a hero just like he is. The end.